Hello, hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Skeptics and Seekers Sunday Sermon. This is 4S. I'm David Johnson. Let's get started with Darren Lute and Andrew What's-His-Face. Hello, everybody.
Hey, kids.
And Darren Lute is mute today. He's pantomiming. He says hello. Pantomiming on a podcast with two blind people. Bad choice. I'm just going to say that. So, I'm just going to make up
Actually, it means he can
interpretations.
say anything he wants, and neither of us will ever know.
And we can say that he said anything that we want. This is already going off the rails.
Off the rails.
Hey, guys, you know that I have not been doing shows for a little bit, and I'm easing myself back into it. Knee issues on and off, mostly on, and I'm taking just a little bit of time off of work, so finances, bleh. My attitude, very bad. Spirits kind of low, but otherwise I feel great.
And this
So
is your way back into podcasting, too.
this is it. Yeah. No, I do public revelations of my shit all the time. It's my way of being a bit vulnerable and exposed and accountable in some way, whatever that means. And it's just my thing. It's what I do. It would not take very much prompting to get me to stop doing it. So
I can tell you the weather's great on the other side, dude.
Okay. Okay. And when is the last time you've podcasted, Andrew?
Sort of my point.
Yeah.
Sort of my point.
It's been a while. So Darren, like the ladies in the red light district, just keep saying yes, and so I am always glad to have Darren on the show. I haven't found the red light district in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm beginning to think it's the whole city.
Of course, it's the whole state, dude.
Yeah. So we're going to get satanic. We're gonna go satanic on your ass is what we're gonna do. We're not going to try to become possessed or raise a demon or anything like that. It's already been tried. We can't do it. All right. We're not worthy enough even for the demons. Screw those guys. So what we're going to do instead is talk about the actual satanic, the Satanic Temple. The Satanic Temple. It is a 501c3 bonded and licensed religion in the United States. It's a legit religion. I don't care whether you think it's legit or not, or whether you think it should be legit. It is, by all state federal laws, a recognized religion in this country. The Satanic Temple, as opposed to the other thing, which was actually around before the Satanic Temple by a lot, the Church of Satan. It is not actually a religion. So, interesting, those two things. The Church of Satan is actually a satanic cult, as opposed to a Jehovah cult. And they do actually believe in Satan. and so many other things. We might get to that a little bit. But the Satanic Temple is not that. And so the one that you hear about in the news as doing things, they have statues in various public places, that sort of thing. That is pretty much always the Satanic Temple, the actual legitimate religion. So we're going to just talk about what this religion is. But before we get there, you see, that's a tease, folks. And it's always a really bad segue when you point out the segue. I've been off this game for a while. So, um,
Oh, look, 65% of the people just press stop. What do you know?
really, did I ever have 65% of the people? So,
Well, I did mean 65% of those listening. And I have
oh,
no idea how one person managed to
hon
be 65%. We'll leave it there. That's
honestly, 65% of the people usually press stop way before this. So so I'm doing better already. Thank you, Spotify statistics. Anyway,
no, professional podcasters don't look, dude. No, don't look at the spot. No, don't
I
do that.
don't. I'm just pretending that I know what my stats are because I don't give a damn. Um, so before we get there, this is going to be new to Darren. He came here only ready to talk about the Satanic Temple. Fool. Before we get, before we get there, I actually want to have just a few words among the three of us. And Darren, you actually heavily feature in this part of the conversation because what we're going to do with the Satanic Temple is going to be brief. I want to talk about what it actually means to be an atheist and what we don't actually grant and, where we're coming from in the conversations that we have with Christians because I actually think I believe, having spoken to them for a number of years, and by the way, enjoyed most of the conversations. I think Christians don't actually know who they're talking to. They don't actually know who we are. When they make certain arguments, it makes me scratch my head, not at the arguments. The arguments are sometimes good academic arguments, I'm sure. But I
Mm.
scratch my head over why they're making them to us. I don't I don't understand what they think they can get out of it. And I think they believe that they have a chance. I think they believe we must buy into some of the presuppositions they have, or that they are just unaware of how many presuppositions they have, how many presuppositional mountains we have to climb before we can get to where they are.
And I
And
think there's
so
also a lot of things they think they know what they mean when they're talking about it, but they don't actually know what they mean too.
I would agree with that. Having spent the first part of my life as a Christian, there's a lot of stuff that just becomes Christianese. It becomes a part of your language, a part of your jargon that you don't fully understand. And you think that everybody you talk to thinks about these things, words, ideas, concepts, the same way you do, and they don't. But among Christians, this stuff is what passes as normal conversation. And so I think they forget just how big the chasm is between where they are and where we are. And no matter how politely we talk to them, and I hope it's always polite. I want to get more polite, not less. No matter how polite we are, and no matter how interested we are in the conversation, there's a chasm that is so wide, and I think they forget it, and I just want the three of us to take a moment to remind them of how much is separating us and them. Andrew?
I honestly don't think they know how big the chasm is. A while back, Matthew and I had Justin Brierley on, Still Unbelievable.
Mhm.
And
Great show, by the way.
oh, thank you. I thought it was a good show too. Um, David, you'll remember that when you and I were on Unbelievable,
Mm.
one of the last things that came up was the prayer test
Mhm.
that Justin wrote about in his book, right? And
Yes.
I don't know, there's 70 some odd people that participated in the test, and it was sort of giving God a time limit, right? 30
Yeah.
days or whatever the length of the test was, and nobody came through in the time limit after operating as a Christian for that amount of time. None of the skeptics that participated came through and said that they felt any different about God. But eventually, a couple of people responded after the time limit was over, saying, maybe there was something different. They hadn't come across a Christian God, but maybe there was something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the Still Unbelievable episode, I challenged Justin to find Christians that would take the same test in reverse, that they would just operate as skeptics for 30 days and see how their lives were different. And first, he asked what the value would be. Well, to me, I thought the value was pretty clear, right? If there's a value in a skeptic pretending to be a Christian to see if they come across a God, then surely the reverse might be true. If you operate as a skeptic, stop going to church, maybe it will change your life and you'll decide that there's no need for the God that you think exists.
Right.
So we went through that. But after some back and forth, Justin finally just said, and this is where I left this is where I left the conversation. Justin said, Christians aren't going to take you up on it because they really, really believe in God. My point is, I don't believe they understand how big the chasm is. Christians won't, what's the point from what Justin said? Christians won't consider the alternative, not even temporarily. And I think that's why we end up where we end up in these conversations, is that the ones that are willing to stand up and raise their hands and participate in your show and my show, in conversations with Darren, they are not the ones who are willing to consider or try to understand just how big the difference is between us. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I had Justin tell me so.
Well, right. And I think that it becomes pretty clear if you tell the same person who asks you to do a prayer test, just say the sinner's prayer or the seeker's prayer or whatever, made up prayer you want. If you just say, yeah, I will do that. If you'll say the Satan's prayer, pray to Satan for satanic enlightenment so that you can understand, what really happened as opposed to just taking the writers of the Bible's word for it. Just say the satanic prayer and see if life doesn't get better for you under the rule of Satan.
Right.
They would never
Right.
consider it. And here's the thing: we don't believe in their God. They actually believe in Satan.
Right.
They actually believe that Satan is a real thing. They would never take the Satan's prayer. They would never do it. And yet they would call us not real seekers if we didn't take the seeker's prayer.
Yeah. Not only wouldn't they do the Satan's prayer, but you couldn't even get him to do the prayers from one of the books of the dead from the ancient
Right.
Egyptian
Right.
religions or anything like that.
Well, I think from their perspective, that's just another version of Satan's prayer because, maybe they do believe in
Mhm.
other spirits that are out there. And they would just say, yeah, all
Mhm.
those other spirits are satanic. They're demonic. So
Yeah.
it is the fact that they have this huge blind side. It um, it shows that they just don't um, they don't they're not understanding that we are on different planes altogether, and there's more
Yeah.
than a great gulf between us. I just want to say hello to
Well,
Brian with an I, who is in but will never actually turn on his mic to speak. But one day he's going to accidentally leave it on. And we're going to have some actual commentary from Brian and I. But thank you, Brian, for holding down the place in the cheap seats. Oh my God. Brian, you've turned your camera on. We are live. I can edit this with a lot of work, but I'm not going to. Uh, so if you would like to turn your mic on, that would be even better.
yeah.
And what we have learned is that Brian I is a very handsome man. this is ridiculous. I figure he's been hiding, because he's got like half his head missing or something. I don't, the man in the iron mask. So this is a this is the dude. Uh, my God, this is why he won't show his face, because he makes the rest of us feel bad about ours. Holy shit!
Hey, no,
All right.
and what a haircut too. That's the haircut I sport, but he makes it look good. So so there we are.
All right. So, Brian, you just speak of whatever you want to. I think you're muted or something. I don't know. It's technology. Who understands this shit?
There's a bunch of little buttons at the bottom. If you press
Yeah,
them all long enough, something will happen.
yeah, probably nuclear war, but uh, honestly, it's time. It's been a while. So anyway, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
in trouble with everybody now. So I just want to give this conversation a little bit of my take on it, and we'll move on. But Brian, we were talking about the fact that I think there is just a big distinction between believers and non-believers. Maybe not agnostics so much, but atheists. I don't know. Depends on how you spin those words. There's just so much that can never happen with internet arguments between atheists and Christians. And don't get me
Uh,
wrong, most days I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the mental challenge. I appreciate any hope of civility so that we can transcend maybe some of the minutiae of religion and get to talking about things that affect the world
and I want
and how we treat people and so forth. But when it comes to God, I just have to say this to Christians with all the loving kindness in my heart. You don't stand a chance of converting me and most of the people that I know who don't believe in God already with arguments. This is, I think, the biggest challenge for the internet apologist. All you have are arguments, and your best arguments are probably academic arguments because, at least they have some kind of form and structure to them. They follow some kind of logical structure and philosophical pattern. So this is your best opportunity, and it's never going to get you anywhere. You cannot introduce a person to a god with an argument, with a syllogism, with philosophy. You see, I'm not a great philosopher, and I can easily lose to your philosophy. In fact, I can even grant you the possibility that the God of your academic arguments is real. And yet, your argument can never introduce me in a personal, experiential way to that God. So, my giving assent that you made a better argument than I can refute is absolutely meaningless. It does nothing, gets you nowhere. You cannot make me a Christian, a follower of Christ, a believer in Yahweh by beating me in an argument. Can't do it. Not possible. You have to find a way to cross that experiential barrier so that there is an actual real introduction to the God that you believe in that I don't. And you can't do it. You have no way to do it. You lose every time. And so even when you win the argument, you lose on the thing that matters, which is making your God real to anybody.
And the interesting thing about, at least to me, right where we are, is if you start to win an argument using philosophy, the tools of reason, one of the fundamental approaches, and by fundamental I mean fundamentalists, not fundamental philosophy. So careful how you read me here, folks. One of the fundamentalist approaches is to say that your arguments come from the devil, and while it's clever wording, it's just the devil trying to intervene. And so Christians are very happy to try to create an argument that will convince you. But there's a particular brand of Christianity that will not give you the same generosity in reverse. you're labeled as heretical right out of the gate, using the same tools. It's a despicable kind of you can't really call it reason. It's a despicable kind of conversation. And I was part of that world for a long time. David, you were too, I know.
Mhm.
It's and it's it's illustrative of the point about the divide between Christians and uh, the intellectual skeptic, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I can't
Darren,
tell you how many times I've been called the devil because I start making sense.
okay, well, Darren,
Uh,
I've been
Hey,
trying to get myself called the
hey,
Antichrist, and no one will do it.
in
So,
your case, it's true, dude. You're just making shit up.
okay. So look,
Uh,
Darren, the question I want to ask you, because unlike Andrew and I, we were born in a time and a place where religion was expected, and we were going to be religious one way or the other at some point in our life. Uh, no
Yeah,
real way around that. But for you, it's different. So have you, in your time of being on the internet, ever encountered an argument that brought you close to
that's a good
belief?
question.
not even remotely, no. The problem, I think, the biggest problem with that is that apologists, for some reason, they were told that arguments are evidence, and
Mm,
so they don't understand that arguments are, in fact, not evidence, but they seem to insist that it is. And I don't know who told them that, but it's done nothing but harm their efforts.
Yeah, I think that's a part of the academic side of this, because the academic philosophy community, it exists on arguments. In fact, philosophy is arguments. Experimentation is science. So, you know, science needs experimentation. Philosophy doesn't. And so, if you can get a good argument in philosophy, that's really all you need to win the day. And so that's what Christians have, is an argument, and you just can't. And no argument can carry the weight that Christians give it. I mean, I look, Brian. We were talking a little bit earlier this morning on the board. The board, skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Log in your Discuss account, discuss away. Send me an email, skepticsandseekers at gmail.com. So we're talking on the board about one of Dale's latest shows. He does a good job with his shows. I do like listening to them most days. He's talking about sola scriptorum, and I I don't know. I just snapped. I had a I don't know what happened in my brain, but I just couldn't take it, and I said, "Look, this with I can't bring myself to give any more damns about sola scriptura, or this sort of thing, because um, you see, I don't care about the scriptura part. You're not. Your holy book to me is no more interesting than any other holy book. Is full of fantasy and allegory and uh, things of this nature, and it's it just has no bearing in the real world for
mm,
me. And so this kind of in-house philosophical debate doesn't move the needle for anything. And so if this is the kind of debate that you're going to have, just kind of an in-house, in-church debate, you should take it offline and have it in your churches. Because when it goes online, it's the world. We all see it, and we don't give a damn. And so when you were, I just use this as a jumping off point to say, look, if you want to have a conversation with us about God, that's fine. But just understand where we are going in. We don't buy any of your presuppositions. I don't believe that a God made the universe. I don't believe in magic, and I don't believe in magical creatures. And so if you tell me, yeah, well, the Bible was inspired by God, let me stop you right there. I don't believe in magic, and I don't believe in magical creatures. And that's just the answer to everything that you can tell me about religion. You were never going to get past that barrier. Let me be clear. There is nothing that you can say to me that can get you past that barrier. You simply have to get past that barrier for me. You've got to make a demonstration that makes me say, oh, I guess I was wrong. There is magic. And you can't do it.
The issue, so the man, to even write a good magic story, the magic has to follow rules. And this is what makes a good fantasy book, and it's what makes really bad fantasy books. Either there is a magic that has some kind of internal consistency with bounds and limits, or it's inconsistent and the story falls apart. And the problem that I have as a skeptic trying to grant magic is that I want to know what the boundaries and limits of the magic is. And it seems to me that the very moment we can start to study magic, if there were such a thing, whatever, there are different views on magic, right? So in this case, I'm talking pretty generically, but the moment you say, here's this magic and here's the rules it follows, in some way it stops becoming magic, right? Because it's penetrable. It's something that can be studied and analyzed. And if it can be studied and analyzed, it may very well be the case that it's just nature doing quirky things. But I don't accept magic, because if it's reproducible and observable, it seems to me like it is likely to be something that can be studied and reasoned out.
Well, and
And
reproduced in that it's just science of a higher order. It's a good book series for people if they like fantasy and this sort of thing would be The Secret Histories by what's his face.
Simon R. Green,
Thank you, Simon R. Green.
the
Andrew,
Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. Really good, consistent magic
yeah,
throughout the books. I think there's
yeah,
like 15 of
right. Well,
them.
and like any good fantasy series, they never end when they should, and they become a business, and so you just have to write the next book.
It was good up to book number 9. That's all I'm saying.
Well, look, if a series is good through 9 books, that's great. I actually prefer my fantasies and trilogies.
Yeah, if you like good magic, Brandon Sanderson always has the best magic.
Yeah, he's got good magic.
Never heard of Brandon
good.
Sanderson. What is a book series that you recommend?
Oh God, all of them.
Okay, all right, very good.
If it's got Brandon Sanderson on the cover, it's a good book.
Very good Christian argument there. Thank you. So
You're
all
welcome.
of it. What's the best part of the Bible? All of it. Okay, no problem. So look, let's get into this. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about this, and I know that we each have so much more to say on the subject, but now we're going to get into the short part of the show. It's actually the main part of the show. It's the tease. This is going to be titled Satanic. You're really not getting what's on the tin, but sorry. And I just want to talk about the fundamental tenets of the Satanic Temple. However, before we get there, it's another tease. On this main page, we don't even have to dig into we don't have to click into the link, but Darren, if you would go down to where it says the Satanic, it's right under this, in fact, Satanic Temple versus Church of Satan. There are 2 paragraphs there. Would you mind reading those?
Sure. The Satanic Temple has been the primary religious satanic organization in the world, with congregations internationally and a number of high-profile public campaigns designed to preserve and advance secularism and individual liberties. The rise of the Satanic Temple has met with an increase in commentary regarding what Satanism is as a media outlet, struggles to grasp how this upstart religion has begun to shift religious liberty debates with claims of equal access. With unfortunate regularity, much to our chagrin, the Satanic Temple is confused with an earlier organization, the Church of Satan, founded by Anton Zander LaVey in the 1960s. The Church of Satan expresses vehement opposition to the campaigns and activities of the Satanic Temple, asserting themselves as the only true arbiters of Satanism, while the Satanic Temple dismisses the Church of Satan as irrelevant and inactive.
Okay, and I think that's true. There's more information on the site. We're not going to read it all. But the thing I want to add to this description, I actually couldn't find it on the site, but I always say it in many places publicly. The Satanic Temple, they don't believe in Satan. Are you shocked? They don't actually believe that there is a real Satan any more than they believe there is a real God. The Satanic Temple is an atheist organization. They don't believe in any gods. They do not hail Satan. They do not respect Satan. Satan is a mascot. And it's just a way of getting under people's skins. They could have called themselves the Loyal Order of Voldemort. They are using Satan as a political statement. They do not believe in Satan or worship Satan in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
But they do eat babies, right?
Only for holidays.
No, no, that's the Church of Satan. You know, sorry. They do not, burn people or, things in general. But they are a religion, and they do have, atheist meetings and things. But I think just the first thing that people need to understand about the organization that they hear in the news and they have this visceral reaction to is that the organization outside of the name has nothing to do with Satan.
So there's something interesting in there. All jokes aside, there's a sort of thing that is going to be said. In fact, somebody's cracking open their laptop right now to put this over on the Skeptics and Seekers boards. That would be skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. For those of you that want to determine whether I'm right. I'm right. Somebody is going to write, but see, David, you just said that atheism is a religion. And I think it's worth pointing out that while we are talking about this as an atheist religion, their 501c3, all of that sort of thing, that doesn't mean that atheism itself is a religion.
Correct.
They are going about the practice of this thing.
Jediism is also a religion. So, okay.
Well, but this has been a big talking point among Christians in almost all varieties. That we're all religious and we just have a different God.
Yeah.
So I want to point out that while the Satanic Temple is operating as a religious organization, I'd like to point out that the big reason here is equal access and equal opportunity.
Exactly.
It was a way to combat the sort of stranglehold that Christianity has on our politics and public institutions.
Right.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead. I'll shut up. My apologies. I don't mean to.
I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, there's a difference between atheism and a organization with tenets that has atheists as a part of it.
Right. Right. And look, you can make a religion out of anything. I quip that Jediism is a religion. I don't know if they're actually a religion or not, but they could be.
They should be. That'd be great, man.
I mean,
What fun.
your religion doesn't have to be sensible. It doesn't have to be, you can make a 501c3, you can make a club that follows the laws and turn it into a religion. So anyone can, make any cockamamie idea a religion. You can make food a religion, a religion based on food, rather. But that doesn't mean that every time I eat, I'm practicing a religion. Food is not religion, but some schmuck made a religion, food-based religion. So that's kind of what this is. The Satanic Temple is an atheist organization, but they are also a religion. The Freedom from Religion Foundation is also an atheist organization, but it is not a religion. That is because atheism is not a religion. So, um, but yes, I grant that you can certainly make atheist-based religions, and in fact, given enough conversation, I might even grant that some political ideologies could be atheist-based religions. It's possible. I'm not sure that I buy that. But even if you could make the case, which Christians often try to do, that uh, certain brands of um, you know atheist religions through the years have been religion based, that doesn't mean that that there's anything fundamentally religious about being an atheist. So that particular type of government would just be another atheist-based organization. But it doesn't actually make the case that therefore atheism is a religion. In fact, I don't even think it's an ism, but it's just an accident of language that's how we have to talk about it. So, with that said, let's just go through these 7 and give some brief commentary. Brian, you're welcome to speak up if you figure out how, or you can leave your comments in the chat. And the eagle-eyed Darren Lute has been charged to bring those into the discussion. Number 1, I'm going to read this one myself. One should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason. Now, I got to tell you, when I first read this one, I had a visceral reaction. Here's what I said. Bastards. How dare they? This cult, one should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason. Clearly, you don't want your kids anywhere around these people, right?
You know what the worst thing about this is? Is that Christians are going to claim that these Satanists stole from their worldview in order to bring up these tenets.
Yeah, I hate you so much for even bringing that up. You should not have given that voice. Now
Well,
that just is.
I can give it a voice because I can also say that these are the same general tenets that the ancient Egyptian religion had, which is 6,000 years older than the Christian religion. It's also the same tenets that the ancient Norse religion had. It's also similar to the same tenets that the ancient Greek religion had. So, I mean, this is not anything new. It's just rehashing all the same old stuff.
Yeah, but like Will Smith and the black suit and the shades, Christianity made it cool.
So, the thing here is, yes, Christians are going to say that, but in that conversation is inevitably going to be the golden rule, right? The doing to others, you have them doing to you. Boy, what a little gem from Christianity. The problem is that as human beings, we did better than the Christian golden rule. The Hippocratic Oath, which isn't spoken at medical ceremonies always in the United States now. But the Hippocratic Oath contains a section, first of all, do no harm. That's a far, far better human formulation that is in line with this first principle that we're talking about than do unto others. So I don't actually buy that Christianity has at its heart a principle that is as good as what was written here.
Well,
Oh
right.
no, I've always said that if I had to choose based on the primary commandments, I would always choose the Satanic Temple over Christianity. The
yeah,
Satanic Temple tenets are much better than the Christian commandments.
golden rule versus this one. This one wins hands down for me. One should strive to act with compassion, amen, and empathy, amen, toward all creatures, amen, in accordance with reason, amen, and amen. I don't think that I could make a better statement of that kind of human prime directive than that. And so if you're going to hate the Satanic Temple, you're going to have to look to maybe some of their other tenets of faith. Darren, what is their second one? Maybe that one's a little bit more hateable.
The struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions.
Bastards. Oh, wait a minute. That's actually pretty good too. So I like the fact that they talk about the struggle for justice, because in the fact that it's ongoing, because it's an important recognition. There's an unsaid piece of the statement that I think is important to human society, which is that we haven't attained it, and we should not stop as if we have attained perfect justice for all people, or even as many people as possible. We haven't, and it needs to be an ongoing pursuit. And
Yeah,
I think that when you're just this last bit here, Darren, I'll throw it back to you. When you're a kind of a law-based organization like religions tend to be, and even Christian religions, you are a law-based group of folks, because there are things that you are expected not only to avoid, but things that you're expected to do. I don't exactly care about your particular philosophies on soteriology. You're still a law-based type of thing. You believe that there is a way that the laws are then perfect. God's laws are perfect, and they're perfectly just for all people. And so your idea is, well, just do that and things will be perfect. Or that, this particular set of laws, never mind whether you perform them or not, they are perfect. And so we have achieved perfection and justice, and we don't need to have an ongoing pursuit of that because God's already laid out the laws. And that, when juxtaposed to this idea that no, we haven't attained justice. We don't have perfect laws. There is no system, not even a religious system, where it's perfect, but that we can continue to improve on what we're doing in an ongoing pursuit. That is going to do way more good in getting us to a better end than something that religion might offer that suggests, well, God's law is perfect, and so we don't need to pursue, a perfect law or perfect justice. Darren.
I was just going to say that the second tenet is the main reason why they're so politically active. That's why they go after equal rights and do all their charitable work and everything. That's the second tenet.
Andrew?
There's also the question of what justice is. And if justice for me the same as justice for you, and where does mercy come in, if it does?
Yeah, I think it's mostly, from what I understand, it's mostly tied up with the first tenet, where everything is act with compassion and empathy. I think that's how they define their justice.
Back to the first tenet, and it says all creatures. Are we talking about um, are we talking about microscopic organisms too, or are we talking about only human beings?
I think they leave it up to the individual to decide that.
Yeah, but I think that we could easily stretch that to microscopic creatures as well as anything that would
Right.
be considered living. A blade of grass. Why would you not treat a blade of grass with compassion and empathy in accordance with reason? That's what kind of ties all of this together. And so we can have conversations about uh, good husbandry of the earth and of natural resources and of things that
Right.
live or don't live for that matter. That is a way of acting with compassion and empathy in accordance with reason.
We are seeing the results. Okay, some people are going to label the following fake news. Apologies. We are seeing the results of not acting with compassion and empathy right now on a global scale, and it actually doesn't matter at which focus you're trying to apply this reason, whether we're talking about insects and grasslands and forest and that kind of thing, or whether we are talking about large herds of cattle and factory farming, or whether we're talking about our interactions with each other and governmental policy. The degree to which we are uncaring about our environment is telling at every scale. And I just don't, maybe you think I'm wrong, but if so, I would like to hear the counter argument about how our lack of concern hasn't impacted the globe at every single level of focus you want to apply.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we have a large agreement, although I don't want to rush past Brian's um observation here that there can be a lot of conversation if you're talking to someone who has a different idea of justice than you do. Um, and then that's where the Christian would add, well, why should we care about your idea of justice? Because you don't believe that anything's objective anyway. And so you kind of get into that
Mm.
argument, but I just believe that there is a place, even with Christians who believe that, and outside of these kind of internet arguments, where we do agree largely on issues of justice and what the ideal outcome should be, and that we need to continue to work toward the pursuit of that. And so I think that definitions of justice and the minutiae of that argument kind of get us past a human scale where issues of justice really matter.
Yeah, the problem with the Christian argument, though, is that they claim objectivity, but they don't actually have objectivity. It's just whatever God says, and they don't even know what God says, so they don't actually have any real definition of justice themselves.
So, Brian, do you have the list in front of you? Because there's a link in the chat. If you click on the link, it'll take you to the website, and down the middle, there's these 7 tenets. Do you have that?
Yes. Yes.
Would you like to read tenet number 3?
Sure. One's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone.
Bastards.
And I will
Excuse
say
me.
that certainly um, the military would disagree. And I suspect that a lot of people in Gaza today would disagree that their body is inviolable.
Yeah, it's so
The Alabama state legislature disagrees as it relates to women. Oh, sorry.
well,
Sorry. Get that one for free.
the inviolability of a thing is kind of always subjective. So in one sense, naturally speaking, nothing is inviolable. We can violate anything. So nature doesn't stop us from doing that. Speed of light, maybe. Speed of light is inviolable. But other things that we can access are not. So there's no law that can make a thing inviolable. It's an ideal. It's a nice ideal, but it's just not true. If someone punches you in the face, your face wasn't inviolable, even if the law says it was. Trust me, having been punched in the face a time or two, your face is not inviolable. So,
Right. So what they're aiming at, though, is surely a social ideal, right? That
right.
if we could get this across to each other, we wouldn't have a Gaza in the situation that it is in today, and we wouldn't have a military that is needed the way our military is. I'm not saying we don't need our military; we damn sure do. But if we could get this social principle across, and the extent to which we can increase the idea of this social principle is actually the degree to which we need militaries less, I think is actually the idea.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe.
Maybe that's
if
a little
everyone,
Pollyanna.
if everyone followed these tenets, then a military wouldn't actually be needed.
Right, but that's what I was getting at about nature versus ideology. It's good ideology. Nature disagrees, and we have to kind of be willing as human beings to transcend nature and consider things sacred and inviolable. And so I appreciate that idea. However, I would say that even this, if I were going to disagree with one tenet in the Satanic Temple um, seven premises, it would be this one, because I think it's not nuanced enough. So I agree with what I think they mean, but it's too short. Uh, because we would all agree that there are some times when a person's body should be violable. And we practice that all the time. A person, when they are taken in hand by a police officer, when they're committing an act of violence or an act of crime, and they are forcibly taken in hand, their body has been violated. And thank goodness for that. That's a time, and they're further violated by being thrown into cages. I don't like jails or prisons and things like that, but that's a different conversation. That's a time when most people would say, yeah, your body should be violable in that
But of
sense.
course, if they had, if the person in question, so just using your words, the criminal, right, the person is being taken in hand, right. So surely, if that person had been obeying this principle, there wouldn't have been a need for some sort of counter, right? So I think the principle stands on its own pretty well. Yes, there are times that we take people in hand, but those times are they're always around this thing, this other thing, this circumstance, this catalyst that creates a need to, to do something about them.
Right, but that depends on what else we think is inviolable. You see, in that spirit, I think that there are lots of things that should be inviolable. My property is inviolable. If you trespass on my property, you're violating my property, which is a way of violating me. If you steal something from me, you've violated my property. So oftentimes, police officers take people in hand not because they were violating a person's person, but they were violating something else that should have maybe have been considered inviolable as well. And so once again, I think this rule is good but incomplete, and I really like what they did with the first rule with the with the last four words, in accordance with reason. And I think that that should very much be a part of this one. I think it's just incomplete.
I think the reason they left it like that was because it's one of the places where bodily autonomy is one of the highest um, ideals that they have in the temple.
Right.
And I'm sort of curious. You were talking about crime a little bit earlier. I'm sort of curious as the scarcity mindset sort of um, trickles out of our shared consciousness. I wonder how much these tenets will be able to be followed a lot closer.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Look, I don't know, and I I think the discussion we're having is actually a more interesting one than the one we should be having on number three, because we all know this is talking about abortion. All right, and none of us is talking about abortion. We've kind of moved past that. I think that Andrew quipped it, but that's what this is talking about. And so if we keep this in
Because it is written so large
right,
on society right now.
exactly, and so if we were talking about the thing that this tenant was actually talking about, I would 100% agree with it without exception, which is why I can say I agree with the spirit of it. But I think that it's a bigger and more interesting conversation to take it beyond that. And if we're just looking at the letter of the law as opposed to the spirit of it, it's incomplete. And I think that we could make a more complete statement about things that should be considered inviolable, including,
I think if they
human
were
persons.
just to add, the exception would be only if it's for the subject's own good. So you
Mhm.
you pick up little babies all the time, and you don't let them decide what they're going to do, but you're doing it for their own good. You send kids to school uh, for their own good.
That's nicely parsed.
It is. I would love to disagree with it just to argue with Brian in real time on a podcast. I'm trying to figure out a way to do it, but I cannot. So I feel like I've been off my game for so long, because this is an observation I should have made a long time ago and it never crossed my mind. So okay. So, and I've had time to think about these tenets. So thank you. I guess that shuts down that conversation. Number four, the freedoms the freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend, to willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forego one's own. So this may be a follow on to the whole inviolable uh, conversation that we were having. And it might add some color to that and expanding it and giving it some shape. I'm not sure. But I would also say that if there was another one of these that I might disagree with, it might be this one, maybe because more and more in my old age, I am I'm not on board with the idea of freedom of speech. I think that freedom of speech has become a religious bit of jargon, and to say that you're against it is to kind of, it's almost like saying I'm a Satanist. Um, but I don't believe in freedom of speech, nor do we in this country. No one does. There are, in fact, things that you cannot say, or at least things that you cannot say that won't get you prosecuted. So we do have necessary limits on speech, and so the kind of speech that's in view here. So let's just start with what they actually have in mind is blasphemy. They're saying that you should be able to offend religious people in their religious conscience, and that we shouldn't be silenced for saying that there shouldn't be special categories of offense. Oh, you offended my religious conscience. Okay, I agree with that to a point. Um, but I actually believe that we maybe take the freedom to offend too far. Because what we know about humans is that we are emotionally fragile. When you attack a human emotionally, you are attacking them in a way that can create more damage than punching them in the face. And we would put someone in jail for punching a person in the face. But to say then, but you can attack them emotionally any way you want to, is to not understand how important emotion is and how much it plays into our health and well-being.
I think when the framers of our Constitution and the framers of our Bill of Rights and the framers of the amendments, although we've had amendments all the way up into, well, at least into the 1900s.
Mhm.
When we talk about freedom of speech, I think we're actually talking about freedom of speech in the public square sense. And so actually it's a long way of agreeing with you, David. There is a kind of talk that is harmful. But I think in the sense that the framers of the First Amendment meant freedom of speech, they're actually talking about speech. And so the question then is, because you can use this tool of words in so many ways, how do we keep freedom of speech, even if we have to abridge hatred? And I think that's the line that the Supreme Court is dealing with right now with social media platforms. By the way, they're going to get it wrong. They're not going to get it right.
Yeah.
There's no good right answer. But I think that's where we are. We have this toolbox, this human speech toolbox, and we use words in good and bad ways. And I think when we talk about freedom of speech, we're not actually talking about freedom to harm.
Right.
And again, maybe that's a little Pollyanna.
I think a part of this also is that people were poor civics students, and maybe we had poor civics teachers, but freedom of speech constitutionally has nothing to do with you being able to say whatever you want to your neighbor. That's not in view. That's something that we can talk about, but that's not what freedom of speech means. It means that you can say whatever you want to, and the government cannot hold it against you. The government cannot be offended by your speech. So if you say, I hate capitalism and I prefer communism, the government cannot fire you from your government job. The government cannot put you in jail for that. You have freedom of speech, and the government is not an entity that can be legally offended. All right. So that's what freedom of speech is, and that's all it is from a legal point of view. The rest of this is just people talking out of their ass and who don't understand what freedom of speech actually means. And so what they're saying is they have the freedom to assault other human beings verbally, until that human being is crushed, uh, and pounded to a pulp. Well, you might have that right. I don't know, but that is a right that has not actually been determined constitutionally. And I think that we shouldn't have that right.
But is that the same as offending? I'm not sure that's the same as offending.
Well, there lies some place where nuance needs to be found. Mr. Nuance, do you have some nuance there between, just mildly hurting someone's feelings and creating a harmful verbal assault?
No, I don't have a perfect solution.
I wasn't talking to you, sir.
Oh.
I was talking to Mr. Nuance.
Brian.
Oh, my apologies.
Yeah,
Captain,
I mean, sorry.
Captain Nuance.
Yeah, Nuance.
Captain I Nuance. Yes, I know him well.
Look, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I'm not going to pressure you to give any until you're ready. But that is a thing that I would love to have some more discussion about on the board, because this is a kind of important topic, especially in the society where we live right now, and it affects me. It affects how I present myself and my beliefs on matters of religion. It affects religionists and how they should present themselves when they are talking to people who are not them. It affects us all as conservatives and progressives as we enter a political season. I do not believe that you should have the freedom to harm other people with your words. And I don't believe that, because that's what most people think of when they think of freedom of speech. That's not what the founders were talking about, and that's not what good humanity requires.
Yeah, the tenets, though, they include tenet 1, which is to strive to act with compassion and empathy. I wonder if that changes your balance if you combine that with the freedom to offend.
Well, it does. So I was also not thinking of you when I said Mr. Nuance, but I think you brought some there. So,
The thing is
so
that we've actually done a lot of work legally to build a body of legislation around what is free speech and what is not. So the classic is you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater, right? It doesn't matter how free you think your speech is. That speech is when there's not a fire. Okay, just be careful here, right? You can't do that because people are likely to suffer substantial harm. Right now, over on the UGA campus, University of Georgia, they just had a nursing student from Augusta University was killed while jogging at the athletic fields on the UGA campus. The murder was apparently someone who was an illegal entrant into the United States, and the problem is, and that person's been arrested and will probably go to jail for the rest of his life. Okay. The problem is that the repercussions online have been against all Hispanics and Latinx in the area. And law enforcement is getting involved about the hate speech that is occurring on the small college social media platforms. And so there are investigations and that sort of thing. We even while having trouble defining exactly where the limits of speech are drawn, where it stops becoming free speech and starts becoming hate speech. While it may be hard in any individual conversation to say exactly where the lines are, we do know that there are some pretty bright spots. For instance, this is one where someone got in trouble. Do you want to go hunting tonight? And that comment was offered in regard to immigrants to the United States. So I don't know. I don't know what every instance of hate speech that is not free speech looks like. But we grapple with it pretty well when we decide to. The trouble is that we don't seem to have an appetite for it, to just grapple with it right now. Elon Musk, free speech or hate speech? Anybody want to weigh in?
hate speech.
Idiot speech, is that an option?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Idiot speech is always an option along with hate speech.
I just wanted to jump in real quick. The thing about shouting fire in a crowded room, if I'm not mistaken, that's actually not the case. You can shout fire in a theater as much as you want. You might get thrown out by the theater managers, but that was an argument in a legal case that was kind of I think it was like a slippery slope kind of argument, and they were saying, well, that's it was kind of used as an example, but I don't think there's actually any law against shouting fire in a crowded room. What we do have a law against is inciting to riot and to violence. And so shouting fire in a crowded room, the idea is that would lead to violence and trampling and harm, and that would be illegal.
Sure, which was the point.
Right.
Not, working
yeah,
with the idea rather than the specific
right.
example.
So
Right.
it becomes illegal when that happens, but in the same way, you incite person to violence against themselves. Say, if you take someone that you know suffers from suicidal tendencies and you try to talk them into
You
killing
encourage
themselves.
them to, right. You encourage them to pick up a gun and kill themselves.
Right. You can go to jail for that. That's murder or some degree of murder. That speech is prohibited. There are lots of examples of prohibited speech. It's hard to prove when someone has incited someone to riot. See January 6th. It's it's hard to prove that sort of thing. But it is a limitation on speech, and the reason we have that limitation on speech is because we know that humans, as much as we like to think that we're evolved, are fragile emotional beings. And we can cause people to do very bad things or to suffer in very bad ways. And honestly, I'd rather get punched in the face than be emotionally torn apart.
Yes.
So
Agreed.
the thing is, one of those is a crime and the other isn't. And in this particular tenet, again, I just have to claim a slight lack of nuance here, because the freedom to offend is left too wide open. I think that Darren, though, does bring in a good option of how we can view that, though, and I'm perfectly happy to do that. And I think that maybe this is why tenet number one is in fact tenet number one, because it does help to color and expand on the other tenets. And for the listener, Brian had to leave, so he didn't leave just because he got mad at us. He may have gotten mad at us. How would you know with Brian if he got mad at you? So, but no, he let me know that he had to leave. So, Darren, I think it's up to you to hit number 5.
Number 5, beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's beliefs.
Bastards.
Sorry, that one made me laugh out loud. One's view should conform to one's best understanding of science. I'm just going to have to say no there. I'm going to have to say that's a bad idea. Because there really are people whose best understanding of science is a 6-day literal creation, and the Earth is 6,000 years old.
I don't think that's true. I don't think we should be saying that that their best understanding of the science is that. I think the second sentence takes care of that one, distorting the scientific facts to fit one's beliefs.
Okay.
Well, but that's what they would say we're doing.
Yeah, I agree with both of you on this.
Now, they can say it all they like, but science actually has built-in mechanism to distinguish fact from fiction and to weigh in on whose opinion is more accurately described.
I agree, but it doesn't mean that they understand it.
Right.
I agree with every bit of that, dude. I agree with every bit of it. And yet it doesn't mean that they understand it, which means that allowing them to conform to their best understanding of science is a false start.
Right. I think that I would reword this one to say that beliefs should conform to conform to reality. And then I would just leave it to us to figure out, and I might add an additional statement. The best way to understand to get the best understanding of reality is through the scientific method. And I think that would clear this up, because what Andrew is saying is something that also occurred to me, is that one's best understanding of science, if you consider a child, for instance, in the 5th grade, their best understanding of science is not going to be that good. Even if they're a good student, they're studying their books and they're listening, to the teachers, and they have good teachers, their best understanding of science is still not going to give them a particularly accurate view of the world at a 5th grade level. But let me just say where I kind of want to side with Darren a little bit, which is, well, in fact, I don't even know if Darren would agree with this. So I think that it is the best way for us to live, even if we're wrong. So it's the best way for us to be wrong. You want to be wrong by using the best method and just misapprehending it. So,
hey, I want to agree with Darren too, by the way. Just
yeah,
on the record.
So
I want to agree with him. I just think we
you
got
just
it wrong.
can't.
I don't think David, I don't think your solution actually fixes the problem, because I think it's a distinction without a difference. Because according to the 6-day creationist, the Bible is reality, and so their best understanding of reality would be the Bible, and they're distorting science to try to make it fit.
Okay, I lost you there I think. So your last word was cut off, but I hear you, and I agree that may not fix it. I'm not sure what would fix it, but what I'm getting at is that if you're going to be wrong about something, be wrong for the right reasons. So be wrong about the world because you had a wrong idea of science. Don't be wrong about the world because you chose fantasy over science. And so in one way, this tenet may be one that elevates what Christians call scientism, which is to say you should be using the scientific method to make your way in figuring out what reality is, as opposed to some other method. And I think that's kind of what this is getting at, and I honestly agree with that. I think the scientific method is the best one we have, and if through the scientific method you come up with a wrong understanding of the world, that's forgivable because you use your best understanding of what you could learn from the scientific method to get there.
I'm thinking of a John Lennox type character here, and I think John Lennox's best understanding of science actually is that God left room for himself to perform miracles, in this world of science, in this scheme where we would say there's not any room for magic, right? There's just no room.
I just lost you,
for magic. Lennox. What's that? I'm
Andrew,
sorry.
as well. Your volume just dropped out there.
Oh, sorry. So I think Lennox would say that the only problem with our view of science is that we don't leave room for miracles where his view of science does. But fundamentally, I think the two are just incompatible. They're just absolutely incompatible.
See, I don't think they are. Because science doesn't automatically discount miracles, because science is a method for us to figure out how reality works. And if reality works with miracles in it, then science is actually the best method we know about to discover how miracles work.
Sure. So
Yeah,
I
your
will
volume just faded out too. It's
just
like there's
remind people
there's
that
an evil
I went through my view of miracle
producer
earlier, and I
with
agree
their
with
hand on the
exactly what you
fader.
said is what I said earlier.
And you guys
In
keep fading out.
I can hear him just fine, Andrew just fine, Andrew as well. So
yeah, I
but
can too.
it's happening to me. It could just be in my head, and I don't know how the recording is going to turn out, but just know that there might be places where you faded out. And folks, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. If I wanted to shut him up, I would just hit the mute button. I would
Darren,
with a fader.
What you said there is very in line with what I said earlier. If it's a miracle, it's something that we can study. If there are miracles that we can study, I'm not sure that they are miracles in the cosmic oatmeal cookie sense of, there is a grand power out there that can do things that we can't do, and is forever somehow remote from us due to its astronomical power or its intellect that we can't achieve, or whatever there, right? But if there's some miracle that is penetrable by science, that's not actually the kind of miracle that I'm talking about, or that is
Uh,
studyable by the tools of science, if you see what
well,
I mean.
the miracle I'm talking about is the first one you described. If there's like cosmic whatever out there that can manipulate reality, because reality, you know, the physical reality, if you're going to manipulate physical reality, you have to manipulate the physics of it. And we can discover the changes in the physics. We can discover the changes. I mean, that's how all science works, is looking at the changes and then working backwards to figure out how those changes happen.
Yeah,
Right, but
I think that
go ahead, David.
I was just going to say I don't think
I
there's
know
any
what you're going to
science.
say.
No, you don't. Let's make a bet on it right now.
Okay. I will write down what I think you're going to say, and I will send it by email. I think I know where you're going, but go ahead. I'll be honest if
I
you don't.
bet this can of cashews on my desk that you're wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll send it to you via email. So
I'm now 3D printing cashews. I'm not sure that's going to work great, but okay. Let's give it a try.
So I think I forgot what I was going to say now.
Miracles, science.
Oh yeah. Science, miracles. So, I don't think there's a scientist in the world that would deny a miracle, if they saw it. In that they would all say, "Oh yeah, something happened that that violates our rules of understanding of nature." If you chop someone's head off, and then the body picks the head up and puts it back on, and they go on communicating with you. I think a scientist would say, "Yep, okay, that happened. Time to scrap some of the old stuff and start studying on a new stuff." And I don't know if I'm going to call it a miracle or not, but some shit just went down. Every scientist would acknowledge that. And by the way, every atheist would too.
I don't think that's where the heart of the problem is, though. I don't think the heart of the problem is where we go, "Oh, wow, that was some crazy shit." That's not where the problem is. The problem is in determining that the crazy shit that happened was actually a miracle and not just laws of nature that we didn't understand.
Well, let me put it this way.
plan.
I think that scientists would be way more open to the claim.
Yeah, because in order for supernatural to affect the material, they would have to add energy into the system. And the energy has to come from somewhere. And if the energy is just popping into existence, then it's not a physical reaction that's actually happening in that. And if you can figure out the interface between the immaterial and the material that's adding that energy, then you can actually start measuring the immaterial, because you've got a physical interface that is able to actually interact with the immaterial.
It all sounds nice, but the problem is that our discovery that there's some interface and that it's non-material and all that stuff, that all sounds good. But if it doesn't stand the test of time, then it was just wrong. And so my question is actually still, if we thought there was a miracle today, how would we know with certainty that it was a miracle? Look, this is the David Hume question. This is the David Hume question. How do I know a miracle from just being wrong or being fooled?
The same way we discover everything else, novel testable predictions. I mean, it's how you discover how reality works.
But novel testable we are wrong, even from time to time, with novel testable predictions. Now, science, I'm not arguing. I also know where you're going. You're going to say, right, but the thing that allows us to know where those novel testable predictions were wrong is further science.
Yeah,
I
just
agree.
further novel testable predictions.
So we're not at disagreement there. Where we're disagreeing is the length of time between thinking that a novel testable prediction gives us a miracle and the some point in the future where we were wrong about it, because they don't necessarily happen close together.
So, as interesting as this discussion is, and it is, we have two more tenets of faith. I would say that this is my prediction is the Christians will just enter this discussion uh, by yelling "scientism" and then running out of the room.
Hey,
Yeah,
well, hey,
I'm
we
okay.
gave them plenty of room, man.
I'm okay with scientism until a Christian can describe a better way to know reality.
Hey, you're singing my song here. So, if you say I'm being scientistic, yeah, that seems to be the only show in town. But I'm happy to see other shows if you got them.
Yep. And then once the Christian describes another way to discover reality, it becomes part of science. So we're still good to be scientisms.
And I just want to wrap my arms around this particular one and say, even though I have some problems with it, I still agree with the overall sentiment of it that belief should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should be careful never to distort scientific fact to fit one's beliefs. And I do think that when Darren said that's the key to this understanding this whole thing, this second sentence, I agree with that. It's a warning that we should separate the facts that we can see around us in the world from the things that we wish to be true based on other ideologies that don't have anything to do with facts.
Yeah.
So I agree with it there, but I just thought that there was some room for interesting conversation, and because the three of us can never get together without arguing. We actually argue
that
more
would
than
be
Christians.
no fun. That would
So-
be no fun at all.
So
I don't like you guys if we're not arguing.
well, it's not an interesting show. So I'm doing a show here, folks. But I'm also not arguing for contrivance. I bring people on who bring, wrong opinions, and then we can have a real argument. So thank you for joining the show. Number 6, no comments are necessary here. Number 6, people are fallible, period. They could have stopped here with that tenet of faith. Amen. People are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. If I didn't know any better, I would say that tenet number 6 was written by Brian Better. That's because that's kind of his motto on the board when we're having any discussions about morality and sin and things like that. So it's worth repeating. People are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. That's such a good rule, and it's in opposition. I don't want to say it's in opposition of, but I see some clear differences between that and people are sinful. And when you cause harm, you need to pray to God for forgiveness, because that doesn't do anything for us. Fallibility is not a sin, and if you think it's a sin, you're just being fallible. I would say when you're thinking that, and then asking God for forgiveness has nothing to do with doing your best to rectify harm you may have caused. You don't get a get out of jail free card by talking to your magical genie and getting forgiveness and saying, well, you know what, I did that and it harmed people, but I'm saved, and you
What
just
if
need to
you
get
pray to
over
a
it.
milk jug?
The milk jug would tell you to get off your ass and go rectify and resolve the harm that you caused. So I think that Christianity is weak on this point. And I think that, and now I know that there are many Christians who would say, no, you should, in fact, do things to resolve the harm that you caused. But they would also say that the thing that you're doing to rectify the harm is not the thing that justifies you in God's eyes. It's getting magical forgiveness from this magical being. That's what does the justification. And what this is saying in a very secular sense is if anything is going to be fixed from a problem that you caused, you got to fix it.
That's right. And the reason Christianity is let out on this score, in my view, is that Christians have this sort of harm get out of jail free card where you can pray for forgiveness and you can pray for God to heal them, and because you have faith that God will forgive you and that God will heal them, you're sort of off the hook. And if you think I'm wrong about this, you ain't been sitting in the pews very long, right? And so the power of this particular principle is the requirement for the person to take an active role, to make a substantial bid, to do something on their own to repair the harm, right? It's not a get out of jail free card. You can't pray for it and ask for forgiveness and then pray for God to heal them of whatever wrong you did, and then you're off the hook. It doesn't work that way. And that, for me, is why Christianity doesn't get this job done.
So, Darren, you have number 7, our final tenet.
Every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word.
This is a very enlightened thing to say. I couldn't be behind it more. And so 1 and 7 are kind of bookends with almost generic comments about how we should think about the world. To say every tenet, talking about the tenets in this list, is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility. First of all, a guiding principle. It's not a law. There are no laws. In fact, they state in their materials they're not an authoritarian top-down structure. There's no one who can give laws at the Satanic Temple. These are guidelines, principles, ideals that you can take on and to achieve a certain outcome, inspire nobility. These ideals, they don't guarantee nobility, but hopefully they will inspire nobility in action and thought. And then they come around and kind of bookend, like I said, the spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over
Follow your mirror neurons.
over
There
written
you
and
go.
spoken word. This is so different from a religious point of view, especially a Bible point of view, that says everything good comes from God, and if you want to achieve anything, you sinful slug, you have to put your faith in God to save you, because you can't save yourself. You can't improve yourself. You can't do anything on your own. So follow these instructions and do this thing and believe in this God, and then achieve some kind of spiritual enlightenment. And this is saying, no, follow ideas of love and compassion and empathy and be inspired toward nobility in action and thought. It's a very different thing to say. And I think that, this is kind of the difference, because I know that there are Christians who are going to say, yeah, we believe in all that too. Okay, but it's you believe it with a religious gloss on it. And this is the secular idea. And it's just proof that you don't need the religious gloss. The religious gloss is not necessary to get this. And I find it ironic. that an organization that has satanic in its name has has ideals that match or exceed the best that religion has to offer. Except they can achieve it without the God, without the religion, without any of that. And I think that, as I look over these 7 tenets, um, I think we should just maybe read them all uninterrupted before we go. And so, Darren, I will let you do that and have the last word before we go. But as we wrap up our closing thoughts, my closing thought is this. It's tenet number 1. One should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason. Honestly, they could have stopped there. I think that as a guiding principle, this is a great idea. And once again, my overall takeaway from all of these tenets is that you can have the best of humanity without the religion in a purely secular organization. I say it's a purely secular organization. Don't start writing, I know their religion. I have already said their religion. It's a political action group, folks. They never want it to be a religion. It's that they had to become a religion in order to speak into the situation in the world that they find themselves, which tells us how embedded religion is in this country. That if you want to actually speak into it in a way that can change it, in a way that can fully participate in the system, you have to be religious to do it. I think that's a shame, because you don't have to be religious to be a good human. Andrew, your final thoughts?
I thought I would pick a principle out of here too, and happily, we did not pick the same one. It seems to me that running through all of these guides, there is a roughly common theme, and that common theme is personal responsibility. It doesn't matter whether it's acting with care and compassion, or whether it's trying to rightly divide science, or it's about personal responsibility. And my problem with religion is that the level of personal responsibility that most people in religious organizations have to maintain is pretty small. There's a God that's going to fix it. There's a God with a plan. There's a God that forgives. There's a God that changes the world to match his will, yada, yada, yada. The world gets better when we all take responsibility for our own actions and all of the consequences of those actions. And we do that unflinchingly, and we don't waver from that. And so I'll leave my last thought with a story. I have an acquaintance, someone that I talk to now and then. And he has been in trouble in the past. Got in trouble with some teenage girls, and ended up in some legal trouble. And not long ago, this person's highly religious now. And not long ago, that person told me, I don't ever think about that anymore, because I don't feel like it was me. I feel like there was some, he didn't use the word Satan, the word devil came out. The devil was involved in all that happened. And it put me, it put me almost into a place where we couldn't continue talking. So this is a problem for me, that you can take actions and then absolve yourself simply by saying to me that it doesn't seem like it was you. Because to me, it couldn't be anybody but you. My problem with religion is encapsulated in that story. If you're using your religion for a way out, as far as I'm concerned, you're misusing your religion, and you're misusing it in a way that could allow you to continue to harm the people around you. Personal responsibility for me was the key. I'll leave it there.
Darren, your final thoughts?
I always found it odd that Christians always have to say that you need a God to threaten you with hell in order for people to be good, or to somehow mind control you into being good because you can't be good without God. For me, that's always been so patently and obviously false. All we really need are the mirror neurons in our brains to feel empathy, a sense of fairness, to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes and really feel what they're feeling, and to act accordingly. And I think as long as you have that, then no matter what religion you follow, whether you're an ancient Egyptian, an ancient Greek, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Satanist, then you're going to, all your tenets of how to act are always going to be about the same, because everyone, or most everyone, has the same neural structure in the brain to produce that empathy and sense of fairness. And I think this, the Satanist version just happens to be the best articulated.
Okay. I thank you all for your appearances on the show. You know where to find me, but Andrew, besides under a rock somewhere, where do people find you?
Well, we still put on Still Unbelievable. I have been somewhat on sabbatical because of the new jobs that are going on around me, but I'll be around more, probably, truthfully, in the fall. Things in my world are almost uncontrollably busy at the moment. My days happen to me, and, but things are going well for those that care. Things are going well for me and my girlfriend, my little girl. We're living good, productive, happy lives, and you will see me now and then over the next few months, but regularity won't happen again until the fall.
All right. So Andrew is irregular. Nothing that a little kaopectate won't solve. Darren, can people find you anywhere?
Not really. I've got a website I'm working on right now for authors, but it's not launched yet. So I'll probably start plugging that once it's launched. It should be, alpha version should be launched within the next few weeks.
So it seems pretty okay to say then that you can find Darren and Brian with an I at skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Just log in your Discuss account and discuss away. Was that a self-serving promo? I don't know.
Is there
Folks,
anything that's not a self-serving promo? I'm just...
it's been a pleasure. This has been the highlight of my week, and so until the next time, I will see you in the comments, and in the meantime, we're out.